Tin Hi-Fi have received quite a lot of hype over the last 2 years or so due to the popularity of their T2 and T3 series of IEMs, as well as in the more recent months with their P1 planar magnetic IEM. I have to admit that they have quickly become one of my favorite companies too, specifically because of the sound signature they target and the affordable price tags attached to those products. A little while ago, they revealed that the T4 will be available soon, and so here we have it, the successor to the T2 and the T3 series. The overall design of the T4 looks very similar to both the T2 and the T3, but there are some notable differences. One of the things I actually really liked about the previous models was the finishing of the housing. We got a nice mix of brushed and blasted finishes, and this really made the housings feel more premium. The T4, on the other hand, seems more simple as the entire housing features just a lightly polished finish. A more prominent design element is the design found on the back of the housings, which kind of reminds me of a jet engine. If you want to get a few more details about the design and the fit of the T4, then check out the link in the description for the full written review, because for this video I would much rather focus on the differences in the sound character. What I will say though is that the T4 does feel a bit more comfortable and secure than the T2, but I would like to see Tin Hi-Fi spend just a bit more time in improving this aspect for future models. One of the major changes that I really love about the T4 is that Tin Hi-Fi have gone back to basics here. There's no planar driver, there's no hybrid setup, heck there isn't even a multi-BA setup. Nope, just a single dynamic driver in each earpiece. That's it. But don't be fooled by this, because if anything, the T4 is a testament to the fact that a more intricate or otherwise more complex driver setup or technology does not automatically mean that you will be getting a better performing product. And that leads us to the sound and why the T4 is the best sounding IEM I've ever heard from Tin Hi-Fi. Let's start with a reference, and for that I'll use the T2, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. Here we had a frequency response which gave a slightly brighter than neutral signature, along with some noticeable roll-off in the bass and sub-bass. Then I got to review the P1, which was of an entirely different design, and with that came a couple of differences in the signature as well. It had a little more bass and mid-bass presence, and in the mids and treble the most prominent peaks were shifted further up the spectrum. Okay, so let's now compare the response of the T2 to that of the T4. Here again we can see that the peaks in the mids and treble have been shifted along, but the more prominent change lies in the bass and sub-bass area, which looks and sounds substantially better on the T4. Finally, we have an IEM from Tin Hi-Fi which actually has proper sub-bass extension. The treble is something which I found to still be just a little too hot for my liking though, and this seemed to be most obvious when it comes to sibilance. If I compare the sound of the T4 to that of my ER2XR, then on the Etomatic, vocals and cymbal strikes just sound clearer and with better definition. The T4 renders cymbals louder and with greater presence, but it lacks that shimmering definition. I guess the only way I could really think of how to describe it is to say that cymbals on the Etomatic sounds more like tsh, whereas on the T4 it sounds more like tss. It just doesn't sound as natural, and again there's just an extra layer of detail which is blown out. But overall I have to admit that the T4 does a really great job, and if I had to give a broad summary of the difference in its signature compared to that of both the T2 and the P1, then it would be that the T4 still has an ever so slightly brighter than neutral signature, but less so than the T2. The biggest difference for me is that at the same time the T4 feels better balanced and fuller than both the T2 and the P1. The stronger presence in the mids, bass and sub-bass really do a great job of bringing it all together in a way that avoids the comparatively thinner presentations found on the T2 and the P1. However, we should also keep in mind that the signature will be affected by the ear tips you use, and so we can briefly take a look at this with the help of a couple of response graphs for the different tips. The responses we've looked at so far are with the included foam tips, but we can get a noticeable difference when using the frosted and smoked colored tips. I found that I preferred the character of the smoked tips as these tamed the treble a little bit compared to the foam tips, but at the same time would also increase the presence in the sub-bass area, which made the T4 just sound a bit more balanced. Then I also went ahead and had a look at the frequency response graphs using the JVC spiral dot tips as well as the spin fit tips. I mostly found myself enjoying the sound with the spiral dots more, but I seem to get a better and more consistent seal with the included smoke tips, so I intended to use those most often. So the fit and finish is pretty good, and the sound is definitely an improvement over anything else I've heard from Tin Hi-Fi. But does that mean that they are worth their asking price? And would it be worthwhile to upgrade for those who already own something like the T2 or perhaps even the P1? In my opinion at least, I would have to say yes for all of that. The T4 corrects nearly every shortcoming of the previous models, especially with regards to the bass response. Now, the retail price is going to be $109, and for that price, the T4 does hold a very decent amount of just outright bang for buck value. However, you can pick up the T4 for a much lower price during the 11/11 sale. In fact, the T4 is only going to be officially launched on November the 11th, and this review will be published when they go live. Because the launch of the T4 coincides with 11/11, Linsol will be offering a super early bird special for just $79. That's already a 27% discount, but the good news doesn't just stop there, because Linsol will also be giving an additional $20 credit for each super early bird purchase of the T4, and this credit can be used on the Linsol website. So anyways, if you're feeling the itch to make a purchase during the 11/11 sale, then for roughly $80, the T4 seems like an absolute steal. Just keep in mind that this special offer will only be available on the Indiegogo page for the T4 and while stocks last, so be sure to check it out. I really do think that these are going to sell very well, and they might even become a new go-to reference for budget-friendly IEMs. So that's the end of the review for the T4. A big thanks to Linsol for sending these out for review and for making me part of the launch event. And of course, a big thanks to you for watching. If you liked this video, smash that like button, and if you've disliked it, hit that dislike button twice. Happy 11/11 everyone. That's all from me for now, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.